Hello everyone, welcome back to Acts on Health. I am very excited to talk about something I am very passionate about, and this is going to be geared towards exercise. I will be doing another video geared towards nutrition, and it's kind of like myths but the way I'm going to title it is why you're not making progress in the gym, and relate it more to muscular hypertrophy and also strength. But basically why you're not making progress in the gym, the most common mistakes, and what the research shows. Now, I have 6 things written on the board behind me. None of them are in any specific order, but they are just ones that I see very frequently. So again, not any specific order, but except for the first one, I think is probably one of the most important. So number 1, no deloads. And if someone is taking a deload, they're taking it incorrectly. So let me give you an example. They're bringing the weight they're using down and just doing extended amount of reps, which they're still coming really close to failure, which actually brings up fatigue. Because remember, we have the stimulus fatigue ratio. It's talked about in the Principles of Hypertrophy, RP's new book by Dr. Mike Israetel, Hoffman, Melissa, and Jared Feather. Great book. A lot of the information behind me came from that book. So thank you very much, guys, from the RP team. A lot of the other information has come from people in the exercise physiology world, Lane Norton, Eric Helms, stuff I've seen anecdotally and so forth. So again, no deloads. So the research shows that people who don't take deloads ever and are constantly training close to their failure or all stuff, and we will talk about failure because it's on here, are not getting optimal results. So what is the purpose of a deload? Over a mesocycle, over training blocks, basically what's happening is your fatigue is coming up. And we're not talking about just fatigue in the gym. There's all sorts of fatigue. We have physical fatigue, psychological fatigue, and there's a lot of different things that play into that, whether your mental health is good, your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, how much you're pushing close to failure, how much volume you're doing, how much tension you're producing, how's your mind-muscle connection. As you can see, it's a lot of different things. So if you're properly progressively overloading throughout the training block, whatever variables you're assigned to use, there's going to come a time where you more than likely need a deload. Now, deloads are kind of like not on the contrary, but iffy for a beginner. If someone is basically just learning movement patterns, they don't know how to squat, bench, or deadlift, or do an overhead press, they might not need a deload for a while because they more than likely will not want to be training too close to failure because they're learning more of the moves. And you can go into the book on their principles of hypertrophy, talk about why, maybe a beginner is better off having a higher frequency but less farther from failure to lock in those motor patterns. So number 2, no specificity. So the principle of specificity is pretty clear. If you have a very specific goal, you would more than likely want to cater the aspects of your training towards that goal. So prime example, like let's say your goal is hypertrophy if you want to be a bodybuilder, but you also want to be a long distance runner. Those interact with each other a lot. Long distance running isn't good for hypertrophy, so they kind of clash with each other. So I see a lot of people that have no specificity. They'll say they want to gain as much muscle as possible, but say they're jump roping between sets or they're running on the treadmill. If any of my friends are watching this, I'm just giving an example and stuff like that. So their goals are not specific to what they want to do. And it seems kind of minute, but it actually makes a big difference in the long run. So remember, the more specific the goal, the more you want the things in your training regimen geared towards that. We also have the other half that is you don't want to be too specific and you enjoy doing all sorts of crazy stuff. CrossFit in itself isn't actually very specific, but those are very high-level athletes. So you don't have to be geared towards specificity. And if you are more specific, you're not better than anyone else. You're just someone who likes to train in a more specific manner. So, number 3, too much volume. So what happens is in the beginning of a training cycle or muscle cycle, you have MEV, your minimum effective volume. The minimum volume you can have to either maintain or slightly start to progress towards your MRV, your maximum recoverable volume, which we can talk about that strictly alone for 5 hours. It's very in-depth, individual. Some people might have lower minimum effective volumes on smaller muscle groups. Some people are really high, like Jared Feather, for an example. I know in one of his posts, he was saying that his minimum effective volume for quads could be 5 sets starting. I don't even get up to 5 sets. So, it's all over the place. But what do most people do? Most people will start a program. I'll say, can I see your program? They say, I'm training 30 sets. 30 sets. Wow, that's interesting because I don't even get to 30 sets at all, ever. So, and also I'm decently lucky because I respond okay to actually lower volumes. I don't need crazy high amounts of volumes. But what happens is, my dogs are barking, people will start way too high and they don't track anything. I don't have this on the board, but One of the other mistakes why you're not progressing is you don't track any of your variables. You don't have to. If you like going to the gym for general health, throwing weights around, you don't really care about form, go do your thing. That's up to you. It's not optimal. Chances are your injury rate potentially goes up. But if you want to be optimal in the gym, no matter what you are training for, no matter what specific goal you have, tracking your variables is very important. It's the same thing like finances. If you don't track your finances, more than likely you won't have good saving habits or investing habits and so on and so forth. So too much volume in the beginning. A lot of people are training way over their MEV. They actually start a training cycle at their maximum recoverable volume, and they train the failure way too often, which we will talk about. Too much variability. So variability is actually important through long-term blocks. So say you have a training block with 4 mesocycles or 3 mesocycles. You might not have too much variability between those 16, 20 weeks, 23 weeks, but variability can change throughout your training career. The variability I'm talking about is people who go into the gym and do different exercises every single day. It's something that pro bodybuilders do, so there gets a lot of attention from that when it's really a bro science. It doesn't have any science to back it up. And actually the science points in the other direction. So if you actually are an IFBB pro bodybuilder and you are watching this, more than likely if you stick with exercises through a mesocycle, whether it's 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to get that momentum, how do they say it in the principles of hypertrophy? That momentum gain that you get from, feeling the muscle more, having more motor pattern, getting a better mind-muscle connection, creating more mechanical tension towards your maximum recoverable volume. And then when you come back down through a resensitization phase, lower volume, maybe slightly higher intensities, and you bring your minimum effective volume down, now you can change some variability up. But when you're changing exercises week to week to week or workout to workout, more than likely, yes, you can grow off that, but in no way is that optimal by any means. So, overuse of failure. Failure is a tool, and more than likely, most people, unless you're some sort of advanced professional bodybuilder, natural or enhanced, doesn't matter, or you're just cursed with needing super high volume and training more towards failure, because it is individual, as we talk about with everything, context dependent, that you are using failure way too much. So I use the RP templates, and I don't even come close to 1 rep from failure, 1 RIR, reps in reserve, or 0 until the last week in my training cycle, which is week 6. The first 2 weeks are 3 reps from failure. So you get a lot of people that say, well, no, it's all about pushing through the pain, train the failure. Yes, you can grow off that, but potentially you're cutting yourself short from gains. You're actually bringing your stimulus fatigue ratio up, and more than likely deeper into a training block, what's happening is you're actually having what's called junk volume. So you're so tired, so many muscles are fatigued psychologically and physically, you're actually stopping so far from where failure would actually be. Even though you think you are a failure, you're not stimulating the muscles in the way you think you are. So whether because your biceps are giving out before your lats do and so forth, it's super multifactorial, but I'm telling you, if you train to failure all the time, more than likely your stimulus fatigue ratio is pretty bad, and you're cutting yourself short of potential gains in the long run. It all comes down to patience. I talk about this every single day with my friends. It comes down to patience. Do I want to go in the gym and train sometimes from 3 reps from failure for 2 weeks? No, but I have to think long term. Do I want to go in the gym and take a deload every 6 to 8 weeks? No, but I know that's what my body needs. I also know what the research says, and I like long-term progress. So, last but not least, majoring in the minors. This is important. If you don't have a stable base and you don't know how to properly do a hip hinge, a squat pattern, a horizontal or a vertical press, and a pull-up, we'll just use those basic movement patterns, more than likely, if you just jump into some advanced program, you're cutting yourself short, increase of injury goes up, and chances are you're not going to progress for very long. Because again, I get it. You go into the gym, you read Muscular Magazine, you see IFBB pros, you see Phil Heath, just random, arbitrary example, and you're like, oh my gosh, look how much volume they're doing. Not thinking that they're 260 pounds with 3 times your lean body mass and they're enhanced. All these factors come in. It doesn't mean there's anything about this person. They're just a person who is enhanced. So that's just what it is. And you're majoring in the minors. You're focusing on things that matter minimally. So cadence, or people that are the crazy time under tension freaks. And there's a lot of them out there. A lot of famous accounts where time under tension is everything. Time under tension is probably one of the least most important factors of hypertrophy. So, in RP, they talk about mechanical tension, metabolite accumulation and cell swelling, which does come from obviously having more mind-muscle connection, but the cadence is whatever you can control. Anyone that tells you it needs like a 3-second eccentric on everything is just speaking in black and white terms, and they don't understand the literature, which is okay. You can train like that if you enjoy doing that. Again, if you enjoy doing something and it's less optimal, then who cares? You enjoy doing it. That actually matters long-term more. But if you're going out there and thinking that training with, say, really slow cadence is going to yield you better growth all the time, more than likely not true. So, and that's a huge thing. So, we're focusing on if you're supinating your bicep during elbow flexion more, you're getting that real pinky out, or if your pinky's coming up when you're doing the lateral raise. That stuff is important, especially when you're working on mind and muscle connections and maybe some more isolation movements longer down your training career. But if you're focusing on that now without a base, more than likely you're cutting yourself short of potential gains with muscular hypertrophy, strength, power, whatever it is, and so forth. So majoring in the minors is a really big problem. Thank you so much for watching. Talked a little fast today. Well, hyped up on coffee. Got some awesome Hawaiian coffee from one of my patients. So it's great. But again, thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.